Welcome, it's Jeremy Allen Gould. I'm coming to you today to confirm between God and of man that in fact the rumors that you have all heard are true. I started this podcast because I freaking love music. I was privileged enough to book amazing artists and bands in the past, and I was lucky enough to stay in touch with many of them to this day. This is a place to hear their stories. Thank you so much for riding along on this journey, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true. Hey, welcome back to this latest episode of the Rumors Are True podcast. My name is Jeremy, and today I welcome my friend, Kamtin Mohager. You know Kamtin from the band Teenage Wrist, the Chain Gang of 1974, as well as his newest project, Heavenward. Kamtin and I talk about him growing up and his musical influences, as well as the various bands and music he's been involved in over the years. I used to book the Chain Gang of 1974 back in the day, so it was good to reconnect and be able to talk to him. I hadn't talked to him in quite a while, so awesome conversation. I hope you enjoy this latest episode with Kamtin Mohager. Cam, my friend, what is up, dude? It has been way too long.
How are you, man?
Good, man. How are you doing? What is up in your life?
Dude, I'm doing well. Yeah, just hanging out at home here in Santa Monica, California, and it's been probably like the strangest. I don't think we've even had like a spring here, and like the sun's not out. The sun hasn't been out forever. There's zero surf. It's like a weird time right now in Southern California, and we're all kind of losing our minds a little bit. But like this is odd for us, where it's like 67 degrees and like the sun's not out. So yeah, sucks.
Yeah, very cool. What are you doing? What are you doing work-wise out there? And what brought you out to LA in the first place?
Dude, I moved here in 2000. When did I move here? I moved here in 2011, the very beginning. Actually, January 4th of 2011. Remember that day. Yeah, I signed my first record deal, and I think I got like a $5,000 advance. And I was like, I'm moving to LA. I got money, and I'm going to see how long I can make this last. And yeah, 12 years later, I'm somehow still hanging on to that $5,000 that I got, you know.
That's amazing. Good for you.
I'm down to the last $1,000. I got to figure out how to do it. But
well, it's a platinum record. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day. But yeah, dude, just here in LA and shit. And what did you ask me? What do I do? What did you ask?
Yeah, what do you do? I mean, you just doing music full time, or?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, yes and no. I still make music, and it still definitely does, take up time. As far as I think, like kind of like the typical responsibilities of a musician, as far as touring and having a team behind you and doing that kind of stuff. Like I over the last few years, I kind of realized, I think, like what kind of works for what I'm doing and what doesn't work. And yeah, I think it was like a big goal of mine just to kind of like start focusing and honing in on like aspects that kind of work for me, I guess, personally and like emotionally and mentally, because there's so much that goes on, you know, with this kind of, with this type of career.
Sure.
And it took me a while to kind of start to realize, like, yeah, I don't like a lot of this kind of stuff, and it leaves me in a pretty bad place. So that was kind of the long answer, but yeah, I still make music. Obviously, which is why we're here. We're going to talk about all that shit. Over the last few years, though, I have moved more towards creative work for bands and artists. So like branding, graphic design, creative direction, that kind of stuff, which has been a super fun 3 years. I'm still learning a lot and, you know, growing at this and learning something new every single day. But it's been, I feel like I kind of fast tracked the first 3 years, and it's been a pretty cool experience so far, and been able to work with a lot of really cool bands and artists.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now that you say that, I remember you posting stuff. I think you have an incredible visual lens. You know, it's cool that you can use your art in a different way, and it's benefiting not only yourself, but the bands that you're working with. So it's really awesome.
No, it's super fun. I've always kind of like, I've always taken that stuff pretty seriously, I think. And sometimes too seriously. I think like I kind of fall in the trap in times where I get too heady about aesthetic and visuals and this and that, when most times I've probably just got to be having a good time and having fun.
Yeah.
But there is a beauty to it. There's something really striking about an artist and or a band who can, I think, kind of really figure out what their universe is and then be able to package that and like present it to the world. There's something fun about that. And you need people, for lack of a better term, like me, to help facilitate some of that stuff. So it's fun, and it keeps me in and involved with music, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's really cool.
Where are you living again?
Well, I was about to talk about how we met in the first place, but I was in Wichita, Kansas, but now I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. So that's originally where I had lived previously to Wichita, and that's why I started booking shows, because I was bored. And I was I want to have, you know, bands and not drive 3 hours for shows. But that brings me to my next point. I was going to say, you and I met, and we were just talking briefly, but it's like, I want to say it was 2006, maybe 2007, maybe. Yeah, when I booked Chain Gang. It was early on Chain Gang, I would assume.
Yeah. No, it was 2006 or 7 for sure.
And I specifically remember the agent being like, because I was booking Breathe Carolina, and I think Axe and
it's funny because I don't.
Well, they specifically asked for you to play. That's why I remember it. Like they were like
Breathe Carolina, or
yeah, Breathe Carolina did. Because I remember specifically, they were like, I remember I added you last minute, and they were like, they want this band or this artist to open. I specifically remember. I don't know why, but I do.
Where was the show? Like
Eagles Lodge in Wichita, Kansas. Is this little VFW hall, and
fuck yeah. It's all. I remember the entrance, the way the room. I remember it all.
Yeah. And so I want to say, I booked you another time after that, but I'm not 100%. But either way, I know we clicked that night. It was cool, and everything was awesome. Man. And
dude, those were fun times. Yeah, those were. You know, Breathe Carolina must have ran. It's funny because I don't think I ever toured with them. I think what it was is the Axe that Chopped the Cherry Tree. For anyone who's like watching this or listens to this, like this was like the 2005 to 7 era of like scene music, for lack of a better term, and a lot of MySpace shit. And the Axe was a local band in Colorado, and so was Chain Gang. And we just all became good buddies and would go on the road and tour. It was great because like back then, Chain Gang was just me on on stage or on the floor. We were lucky to get stages back then. But yeah, it was just me, a bass guitar, and an iPod, and that was it. So I just hopped in the van with like the Axe or like any band that would go on tour. I'm like, yeah, and when we go on tour, we meant like, we were gone for maybe 5 or 6 days. Like a long tour back then was like a week and a half. But dude, we were so green. So all those moments were so much fun. Getting to like meet people like you, and just like being in these random ass places like Wichita, Kansas, like places I never imagined ever just like going to. I never thought about going to those places, but ended up there, That's
so cool. I just have fond memories of that time. And there's certain groups that I just always clicked with, or always had like just good shows. And it was just like, I just specifically remembered you and remembered that show. And it was just, I don't know. I've always kind of, and then kind of when I found out later on that you were in Teenage Wrist, I was flipping out. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, that's so cool.
Funny, dude.
So,
wow.
Yeah, man. Small world.
Small ass world for sure.
Sweet, man. Well, Cam, tell me, growing up for you, let's talk about kind of how music invaded your life. Maybe some of the influences, the bands or records that kind of just hit you in the heart, man, and kind of put you on the path that you're on.
Man. Well, I'm 37 now, so there have been some years. But I kind of always knew as a kid, like music was just it was a super important thing for me. I kind of just understood it initially. And I didn't necessarily come from a musical family. My parents are from Iran, but they were both musically inclined. My mom has like a beautiful voice when it comes to like traditional Persian chanting and stuff like that. But I've talked about this just with like random conversations. I feel like a lot of kids who have like, come from like westernized culture growing up, it's like, they had parents with Beatles records or Led Zeppelin records and like, whatever, the list goes on. Like we didn't have that. I have 3 brothers. So it was 4 boys in the family. Like we didn't have those opportunities. My parents were basically just listening to like traditional Persian music. So for us, it was like, we obviously don't fuck with any of this. So like, what do we like? How do we figure out what we like? And, but yeah, fortunate enough to be a little kid during the era where MTV played good music videos and actually played music videos, and the radio was, still playing good music and was something pretty important, I think, for influencing younger generations. But yeah, we kind of took it upon ourselves to really like figure out what it is that we like and like, I think, wanted to be fans of. So we spent a lot of time kind of just with the radio on or like MTV on. And we would just kind of sit and play video games, but like have the TV muted and just have the radio on. Like we'd listen to like the alternative rock station. That I grew up in Hawaii. And there was a good alternative rock station, I think on one of the other islands, but we were able to get the broadcast where we were, because the islands are all so close together. Sure. So we were able to get them. But yeah, so we were lucky enough to have that and like just basically spent time just listening to music and involving that in so many of our other activities as well. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. I'm pretty grateful for that too. And that just kind of continued on. And at age 13, we moved to Denver, Colorado, like the suburbs of Denver. And that's kind of where everything really started picking up for me, because you're now like on the mainland. You're surrounded by, you have CD stores, you have, I was actually talking to my brother about this. I was in Colorado last week and he's still there. And like, seeing like a Spencer's for the first time ever. And like, we grew up loving like WWF, which is not WWE or whatever, but like,
same here.
You couldn't get the wrestling t-shirts in Hawaii. So like you have to get them mailed to you, and it would cost a lot of money. So like I remember just like walking into like a Hot Topic or a Spencer's or whatever, and like seeing like a Stone Cold shirt. We were just like,
we've made it.
I have this here, like those little simple pleasures. But yeah, so we were lucky enough to kind of just like, I think, dive in head first now that we had a lot of this stuff in front of us, and that was like, understanding like, oh, I can go buy this. I saw something on MTV, I can write it down and then go to the record store, go buy it. Like, go talk to other people at the record store, go talk to the people who work at the record store. And you start to kind of put all these pieces together. And then that now turns you into someone like me who's 37 and has way too many records in the living room, and I keep buying them and can't stop. So.
I know, I'm the same way, man. I definitely have an addiction.
What's your collection at? Number one?
It's actually at I'm gonna look because I don't know. I just added 2 new ones. It is at 483, which isn't a ton, but for me it's it's enough.
That's good. Enough. I base it off of, is it enough to make moving a living hell?
Yeah, no, I totally.
100 is, yeah.
Absolutely.
I've been doing like a it's been going on for years, and obviously I haven't done it every day because I'm still doing it, and I've continued to buy records. But on my Instagram, I made a point to essentially go from A to Z and put it on and listen to the album, because I'm like, there's so many records in here I probably have just forgot about over the last
Exactly.
years. I took every record out, took a picture, logged it, did the whole thing, but I bought so many records as well, during this process. But I think I'm approaching on the Instagram post story, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm approaching 800.
Holy crap.
And I still have my 10 inches and 7 inches to
me too.
So
yeah,
I think including those, probably pushing 850. So I think in the next, and I have 3 records that are arriving today. So it's
like Christmas Day.
It's bad, man. It just won't stop. So, but awesome. It's a good addiction, I guess.
Yeah. You're supporting bands, and you're getting to see cool tunes and cool acts and all that stuff. Actually, friends of mine down here in Jacksonville, they opened a record press, and I worked with them for a year and a half or so, nice. Pressing records. It's called vinyl record pressing. Ironically, it's VRP. It was cool. It was really cool to see kind of how the process was and be a part of that. I helped them kind of start the business and open it up. I remember cleaning out the factory to get it ready and, all that thing. So I was there at the beginning and
cool.
Had to wind up getting a different job financially, just because it wasn't paying the bills. But it was, it's just really cool. It's a different perspective on, just kind of how the whole process works. And it was really cool to kind of be a part of that. So,
dude, that's so sick.
Yeah, man, it really is cool. Man, I'll send you the link for that website. You should check it out. It's cool. They've pressed some cool stuff, and it's just awesome to kind of, like I said, just see the other side of things, and get to see where it begins. So
yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about and I know you and I probably have super similar tastes in music, but I'm just curious some of your favorite records. I see a Swerve Driver in the background, and fantastic. Record, fantastic band. Yeah, Catherine Wheel. Yeah, exactly. So, tell me some of the records that you need on that island.
It bounces. It's kind of it's everywhere, but it's not everywhere in a sense. We know each other to a degree where that I grew up in loving punk, emo, the post-hardcore world, all that kind of stuff. It's primarily where I came from, I guess. But you have to, I can't forget about all the other things that kind of came with growing up, where 311 was my favorite band as a kid. When I was 8 years old, I was just obsessed with 311 for years. Dave Matthews Band was the first, Dave Matthews Band's Crash was the first album I ever bought,
Wow.
Oasis, I think, was the first band I ever understood what it was like being a fan of, I remember seeing a CNN special about the success of Wonderwall, and I was with all my brothers, and my dad would always make us watch, hang out with him when he got home from work, and he would watch CNN, so we'd usually just be sitting there bored out of our fucking minds. But this one fateful day, he was making us watch CNN, and they had this special on Wonderwall, and we found love. We're like, holy crap, we love this shit, this is awesome. So there's those early moments of all of it. And then when I moved to Colorado, I was exposed to so much more, and that's kind of, I think, primarily where the real love for discovering punk bands and hardcore bands and doing all that kind of stuff came from. So a lot of my favorite records, there are records from that world, and then there are records from the world behind me, the Swerve Drivers and all that. But just off the top of my head, some of my favorite records of all time, maybe even Brainwashed 2 by the New Radicals. I think that's the greatest pop rock album ever made, and most people don't ever give that record a chance. They only know, the hit. So that album to me is truly incredible. Trying to think of some kind of some of the early emo shit. Snapcase's Progression Through and Learning is my favorite record.
Great record.
Man, what else? Put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot, bro. Why don't you look at your record?
Jimmy Eat World Clarity. Clarity phenomenal. Is one of the greatest.
Game changer. Game changer.
Ever. Yeah, game changer. Trying to think. trying to think like more of the emo shit, like that kind of stuff.
Did you ever well, you were in Denver. Did you like Christie Front Drive or like
Christie Front Drive were great.
Mineral
I'm a huge like fanboy of them. I have one of their records on vinyl, but yeah, trying to
Get Up Kids back in the day.
Yeah, Get Up Kids, of course. Yeah, you know, I'll never forget, you know, hearing something to write home about in high school and just like seeing how they dressed. That was actually funny. I remember seeing, I discovered at the drive-in and I saw a photo of them. And back before then, I was just wearing like baggy Dickies, you know, the Blink-182 pop punk look. And then I saw a picture of at the drive-in. I was like, holy crap. Like, what's happening here? So I made my mom take me to the mall. And I got, at the time, were like skinny jeans. And went to Hot Top and got a Get Up Kids t-shirt. And I was like, came back the next day and I was like 16 and felt so fucking cool.
I bet.
It was like 2001 or 2, something like that. I just felt very out of place, but also very fucking cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's right.
But yeah, and then, you know, there's a lot of other stuff, just, you know, Ben's by Radiohead, you know.
Amazing.
Adam and Eve by Catherine Rowe. You can say Chrome for Men, but Adam and Eve is like one of my favorite records.
Fantastic.
Metalhead by Swerve Driver, Storm in Heaven by The Verve.
Great.
I mean, the list goes on. There are a lot of timeless records. So
absolutely, and it obviously influences your music because I hear all those influences in Teenage Wrist, as in Heavenward, as in Chain Gang of 1974. So it's cool. So anyway, awesome. First bands. Let's talk about maybe kind of, obviously you're influenced by music at that time and these records and these times in Denver and Hawaii and all and what you've talked about. So what are some of the first bands that you kind of started to, was it in high school and kind of what were we looking at?
First bands that I was in?
Yes.
Okay, so first bands. Oh man, there's let's see if this works. So the very first band I was in was it? So the first time I ever, so I got my bass guitar when I was 16. And there was a kid in Littleton, Colorado. His name was Fred Bear. We never had a band, but he was like one of those kind of odd stories. He's like a really young kid, but like was really good at guitar. So yeah, he was like obsessed with Green Day and all that kind of stuff. So his mom would pick me up and just take me to his house and we would just like play Green Day songs together. Yeah, which was kind of cool. And then I think the first like band I was in was, what were we called? We were called Long Time Coming. I think dude, I was 16, I think, when this happened. I have a video of our one and only show we ever played, and I wanted to like put it up on this.
You should, dude.
Like, and show it to you, but it's like I'm gonna have to go through my phone. I don't want to be.
Where did you guys play at in Denver?
So we played one show. It was with my good buddy, still one of my best friends. He lives a mile away. His name's Andrew. We played at a music shop called Crescendo Music in Littleton, Colorado. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't really even remember what we sounded like, what we were doing, but I have the video. I'm wearing a Get Up Kids t-shirt. He's wearing a No Motive t-shirt. Oh, I found it. He's wearing a No Motive t-shirt. Let's see if this works. Hold on. See if I can. I'm gonna have to like put it up towards the camera. So if you're listening to this and not watching this podcast, then it's not gonna make much sense. But so let's see. So
that's amazing.
That's bass in the green.
That's so cool. That's so funny.
Yeah. So that was the first ever. I'm glad I have that video clip.
That's hysterical.
That was the first band. I think it lasted a month. I don't know. You know, your typical.
Yeah.
As a teenager, totally. And then started another like pop punky band called The Ending Ever After. And we played 2 shows. We played one show, and like kids went off. Like,
that's awesome.
I don't know if my memory served me well, but like I'm pretty sure there were like 300 kids there in this tiny little space somewhere in like Denver, and yeah, it was amazing. It was just like super fun and so rad. So like We then played a second show, and this, I got to tell this story just because it was so fucking stupid of me, but I'm coming off the high of this first gig. I'm like, dude, we absolutely crushed it. We were trying to, and this is the time when like drive-through was a really, really big thing.
Sure.
So, every band, like Starter Line, early November, they all had acoustic songs. Everyone had the acoustic song, the acoustic, you can hear something. So I don't know, to this day, I still can't really play guitar that well. Like, I'm not a good guitar player.
Yeah.
But I took it upon myself to think it was a really great idea so this is their second show. It's packed. We're a bunch of local bands. We're like the first of 7 bands or something. And there's probably like a good 200 kids in the crowd. And I took it upon myself to think it was a good idea to, unbeknownst to the bands, basically just go into the microphone and be like, I got an acoustic, here's a new song. And I turned, and my younger brother was a drummer and this kid, Jake, was a guitar player. And I turned around to them. I had the fucking audacity to do this and be like, get off the stage. Like, I'm singing this song acoustically. And they're like, what are you talking about? This is how insane I was. I didn't even have the song written. So I essentially had this acoustic guitar and just fully improvised up on stage with I don't know what the fuck was wrong with me. So this thing is probably going on for 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, not making any sense whatsoever. And out of nowhere, someone just throws, those like little plastic dinosaur toys.
Yeah.
Like, you would get through like those little coin machines.
Yeah.
Someone just chucked one of those. And just mid-song just hits me right in the fucking face and just totally takes me by surprise. I wrap the song up. The rest of the set's a full disaster. The second we're done, we're walking off stage. My brother looks at me. He's just like, what the fuck just happened? He's like, I quit this band. And he quit right there on the spot. And that was it. It was over. It never continued. So,
man, small kids.
Yeah. So if you're starting a band out there, don't do what I did.
That's amazing. That's hysterical.
Yeah. After that, that's when it kind of like, I was age 16 or something like that. And then obviously didn't play music for a little while. And then I thought I was like 19. That's when I kind of started playing a bit more seriously. And I was a drummer in a band called Declammern. We were like a Denver band. One of my brothers was in it again, these 2 other brothers. And we were just basically kind of trying to be like Pavement. So that was the first time I was in like a band where I thought like we were, this was early 2000s. So it was like the Strokes were just coming out, all that kind of stuff. And we were just really, focusing on that whole thing. And, first time I ever got an email from a record label, or like we were sending out, CDs to CD demos to majors, and like got an email back that's like, oh, Matt Pinfield thinks this is really cool.
That's rad, dude.
Oh, like we're going to make it. And then, break up. And then, after that started another band called The Vanity, which you can find that on Spotify. My brother ended up just like uploading all the music to Spotify. So that was like the real first time it was like, okay, like I'm dropping out of college. We're going to try and do this. That was the whole thing. It lasted maybe 2.5, 3 years. And, we got a record deal offer. We did the whole major label showcase in New York. We did it all. And it was very awesome, very cool, great learning experience. But when that disbanded, we had spent a little bit of money on some recording gear at home. And that's when Chain Gang started. So
okay, cool. I was going to ask you about that. Chain Gang. Obviously, were you just kind of, I want to do my own solo thing? Is it kind of, how did that kind of materialize? And maybe talk about the beginning of that.
Well, it was because we had made a deal with so the band was myself, 2 of my brothers, and our friend. So my parents essentially were like, you guys can take 6 months off of college and go after this potential record deal because the label's showing interest. But if it doesn't happen, you have to go back to college. So one thing leads to another. The band disbands. My 2 brothers go back to college. And I essentially was just like, hey, I can't do that. Like, I got to keep pushing. I've made it this far. I feel like I've learned a lot. I'd be throwing a lot away if I don't go after this. So we'd invested in some gear, and I just basically was sitting at home. I was like, I was living with my parents, but I was working a job and doing my thing. And I was like, free time would just open up Pro Tools and teach myself how to record and like produce my own music. And it kind of goes hand in hand with like not primarily being a great guitar player. I've gotten better over time, but especially back then I couldn't do anything. I was only a bass player. So I was just like, well, what can I really do here? And I was listening to a lot of Death from Above 1979, The Rapture. This is 2006, 2007. So this is the big wave of electronica, electro music, and Justice was doing their thing and taking over the world with the Cross record and all that kind of shit. So I thought, I was like, well, I can essentially just create these beats and write bass lines and just distort the fuck out of them. And then next thing you know, you have this very gritty kind of punk rock scene adjacent, but not scene. It was very weird and hard to explain. Still to this day, kind of like really figure out what the hell that early chain gang was, because it was just very weird and unique. And that's kind of how it started. And then it just kept evolving, and next thing you know, we're in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm still, still doing it that way. And then, it just kind of kept growing and evolving from that moment where I realized I didn't have to be so restricted to that specific kind of like aggressive, borderline like party music kind of thing. I'm like, well, I really want to kind of write songs. I think I know how to write a song. I want to do that, instead of just like compiling parts and making it more about a vibe. So as I think I started discovering that part of my brain, I had to kind of figure out how do I expand this? How do I turn this into something? So I then got a drummer, and then I got a guitar player, and then another guitar player. And then next thing you know, it's a 4-piece live band. And I'm now taking a lot of influences from like a lot of the, 80s new romantic shit that I love. Like, at the time it was a lot of, it's funny because it went from the party stuff, then it kind of became a bit more of a developed party sound vibe. I guess it's like, very LCD Sound System, early Talking Heads, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then from there, it just kept kind of evolving and growing more into like a kind of more wearing like my Echo and the Bunnymen love on my sleeves, and like the Smiths, Morrissey, just a lot like, like the deep cuts of Simple Minds and Comsat Angels, like that kind of stuff. And then
man, that's cool. That's very cool. So how long after you started the band did you start to write maybe your first record? Was it White Guts? Is that the first one?
White Guts was the first like album. Yeah. And that's that record essentially got me signed. So talk about maybe that record and kind of what maybe the labels that kind of looked at, and you wound up going with Warner, right? I think, is that what it was? Yeah, ended up so for a few years I was collaborating with my buddy Isom Innes. He's been in Foster the People for years.
Oh, cool.
He was from Colorado Springs, and he was part of that kind of like local Colorado scene. He was in a band called Matt and Isom, like super cool band, and they were like one of the only kids really kind of, it was so funny. I remember like seeing live footage of them before I got to meet them, and like they had a laptop on stage, and to me I was just like, whoa, like these kids are fucking around with like laptops on stage, like this is a big deal. We were young, we didn't understand like how a lot of this stuff worked. So we became buddies and we started just working on music together, and along with that I was also working with this guy named Christoph Eagleton, who now primarily just doing sound design, but was a great producer and songwriter as well. And the only person in Denver at that time who was really kind of doing that kind of production. So a lot of White Guts was my work with Christoph, where it was this very electro focused, 7-minute songs that would just go into drum breaks. And it was pretty weird and odd and unique, but oddly enough, that music to this day, those songs specifically still, aside from Sleepwalking, had the most success when it came to sync and placement. A lot of those early songs ended up, one of them ended up in the movie Scream 4. Wow. One ended up in a T-Mobile commercial. One ended up in a Verizon commercial. One ended up in some AT&T. I don't know. It was very weird and odd how those songs had a kind of a time and place. but as that was like the tail end of that focus, I think, for me from like a creative standpoint. So then Iceman and I started working together. So you then had this, White Guts was this kind of like blend of, you could tell I was moving on to other sounds.
Sure.
So yeah, I put the record out just on my own. I think, you know, my parents helped me make some CDs and just had some friends help me with the design, and yeah, put it out, and that ended up getting the attention of this guy who was still a really good buddy of mine, Kevin Kusatsu. He was over at Warner Brothers at the time, and he just emailed me one day randomly. You know, I'll never forget. It was like, you know, it's such a special moment when you get your first real like email from a label. So, you know, the email is like, "Hey, I'm Kevin from Warner. Got a hold of your record. Can we jump on a call?" I was like, "Yeah, man, please. Like, what's up?" So he was so, and that's kind of his personality. He's very direct and to the point, and I love him for that. Probably equally hate him for that too. But sure. Yeah, he called me one day, and so at this point, I was already. There's a bit that kind of goes on, you know, there's kind of like some touring that happened. Sure. Obviously I met you, everything goes on. I then, you know, my relationship with 303 really blossomed prior to this as well. I was supporting them at a lot of local shows when they were kind of really, you know, exploding around that Colorado scene and playing legitimately large venues. So at the time, they were asking me to like start playing bass for their live show, because they went from being just a 2-piece live band to kind of actually having a totally backing band. And so yeah, a lot of stuff happens, whatever. Kevin hits me up. He calls me. He's like, "I love what you made. I think it's great. I want to sign you." Or he's like, "I want to come to Colorado. I see you're opening for 303 in Colorado Springs." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm opening for them and also getting on stage right after to play bass." He's like, "Cool, I'm flying out." So he flew out. I don't think he realized that DIA, the Denver International Airport, is in buttfuck nowhere. Yeah. So like, you have to drive, especially to Colorado Springs, to get an hour and a half probably.
Oh yeah, with traffic.
Yeah. So he misses the Chain Gang set, but still comes. We end up directly driving back to Denver. We sat at this place called Denver Diner, which I don't know if it's still a thing, but he just straight up told me, he's like, "I want to sign you." He's like, "This is how I want to do it. I want to sign in Warner Brothers, put it out through a label called Modern Art Records, and then we'll see what happens." You know? Yeah. So essentially it was like a potential upstream deal with Warner. And yeah, so then from there, it kind of was like, okay, cool, time to make the album. And at that point, I was already pretty much done with wanting to kind of like focus on that heavy electro sound. Yeah. And primarily just kind of want to work on like, you know, I think I can write songs. I can write better songs. Let me continue doing that. So I took half of what was on White Guts and then wrote another half of a record and compiled that to make the official debut album, which is titled Wayward Fire. And that was released on Modern Art Records, and if you want to say /Warner, but it was primarily Modern Art Records. Yeah.
So let's talk about that record a little. Kind of maybe tell me how that recording process went for you, maybe. And you know, obviously you've got a little bit bigger budget, I assume, with the other. Or did you? Oh, you didn't. Okay.
Budget. No, you know, it's funny. It was like, yeah. I mean, I still think so. My old buddy Mike Kaminsky, manager extraordinaire, but he had a house in Silver Lake, and Isom had just moved to LA prior, and I was planning on moving to LA. So he was staying in Mike Kaminsky's. He has this little back house, and this back house has kind of become infamous because a lot of people have like lived in this back house for 2 months and then leave and they come back, and it's just like this thing. So yeah, I basically just went to LA for, I don't know, a week and a half or something like that. And just, I mean, you can't see the full size of my office, but like this room was essentially like the size of an office. And we just worked and just wrote and recorded songs in there. And that was it. It was all programmed drums. Everything was just done directly in the box, no amps. And yeah, that's kind of basically how I wrote half the record to then deliver to Modern Art. So, Yeah, zero fucking budget, man. No budget at all. The budget was $5,000, but the thing just like went in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I ended up moving to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty wild. But yeah, so then that was like the first real taste of everything, and it was a pretty incredible moment. Like, you know, that record got a lot of syncs, a lot of placements. People, it was kind of like in a way a press darling record, just as far as coverage goes. You know, like Pitchfork reviewed it, Spin Magazine was like, you know, putting me in everything, and those were really, really cool moments because that was like the first thing that had ever happened. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I was super grateful.
Did you get to get on some like cool tours after that, or was it
we did a lot of touring, man. We did a lot of touring, a lot of festivals on that tour. So I remember we did this one-off show in New York City at Governor's Island with like Caribou and Phanogram.
Wow.
We toured with Washed Out. We toured with Fossils of People. We toured with The Naked and Famous.
Dang,
Big Audio Dynamite, which was fucking awesome. So I mean, got to tour with Mick Jones at the Clash. So that was like, you know,
unbelievable,
incredible.
man. That's cool.
Who else did we tour with? Yeah, there were a few more bands. We played Lollapalooza. There was a lot of really cool stuff that happened. So like songs were in like a bunch of FIFA games and all that shit. It was
cool,
very
man.
fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. How do you feel about that record looking back?
I still enjoy that record. I do. Obviously there are cringe moments, you know,
Sure.
like I would never do anything like that again.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a special record. It's crazy. You know, it's been over 10 years since that album came out, and like the Chain Gang fan base still really kind of like relates to that record, and they're still very stoked on that album. And it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how to write songs, how to approach this industry, and like starting to really see that was really the first taste of me seeing like the ugly side of what this industry has and everything. And it was just,
Sure.
So, but it was a fun cycle, man. I have some really, really good memories from that time.
That's awesome. The next record, Daydream Forever, did you get upstreamed essentially, or kind of how did that process work?
Yeah, so we ended the Wayward Fire cycle, and I like kind of really dove in like head first into this, kind of heartbroken, and I was going through a lot of shit in my life at the time.
Sure.
Like I was in this really awful relationship with this really terrible person, which, I mean, bless her. Without her, none of those songs would have been written. And like, the songs that had come later that like were my biggest songs wouldn't have ever happened. So like in a way, like thanks to her, but like, it was just a really, really weird time. So I think I was trying to like, become this brooding kind of super depressed person, and I started writing these songs that just were pretty bad, and I was singing very poorly as well. So if you notice with earlier Chain Gang stuff, I'm primarily using my baritone. Like I do have a lower range voice if I sing. I can really focus on that, but I can't say it wasn't natural, but it wasn't naturally where I would go. Like, I could still do it, and it still, I think, worked, but it wasn't my 100% natural voice. So I was really diving into that for these batch of demos that I was working on to then present to Kevin at Warner Brothers for the hopeful upstream. So
Sure.
I walk into his office super cocky, and I'm just like, check this shit out, man. Like, and he like stopped it after a couple songs, was just like, basically like, this shit sucks.
Like, brutal.
I was like, what are you talking about? And he just looked at me. He's like, look, dude, I know you're capable of more. This isn't you. Like, go back to the drawing board. So I was pissed at first, but then I really started to kind of hear what he said. And then I ended up writing the song Lolo Suzanne, which ended up on Dating Forever. And then I had a random session one day with my good buddy Rami, who's a great songwriter, and then two old school pop punk dudes who I grew up loving, Ryan Ogren from the band Don't Look Down, and Nick Bailey from the band Over It. I love both those bands. I still like Timing Is Everything by Over It is still like my favorite. Like, I guess you can classify it as a pop punk record, but it's like just super, it sounds like a Nitro Records album like that. But yeah, I had a random session with them, and that session ended up being us writing Sleepwalking in like 5 hours.
Wow.
And I then presented that to Kevin, and he listened to them both and he looked at me, he's like, "You're on Warner Brothers, you just got Upstream." So I was like,
dude, that's
yeah.
Sick. So
that was really cool. It was a really cool moment, and we, and the rest is history. So we, in that moment, we were then trying to figure out how do we make the album? What do we do? And I was still kind of like in the demo stage, but I maybe had like 2 or 3 songs, and you have to fast forward or rewind back to 2011 during the Wayward Fire cycle when we were playing Lollapalooza. We were at a party the day before our set, and I just got a tap on the shoulder, and I thought, at the time, my very egotistical ass was like, "Oh," so he was like, "Oh, are you Chain Gang?" And I just thought he was like a fan or something, which I guess he was a fan, but I thought he was just like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" But he's like, "Hey, man, I work at Rockstar Games." So I was like, "Oh, that's cool." He's like, "We really love your band. Like, we're working on something. I can't tell you what it is, but I'd love to be in touch and keep in touch."
Wow.
I was like, "Cool. Yeah, sounds good." So he gave me his business card, and thank God I handed it off to my manager. I was like, "Dude, someone from Rockstar gave it to me. Just take it." And I like went off and kept partying and doing my thing.
Yeah.
And so then you then fast forward back to a few years later, and Awesome and I, Warner Brothers originally brought the idea of like taking me to the UK to work on the album and like ride out there with people and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I had just started surfing, and it was just this really special thing in my life. I knew essentially the first time I surfed, I was like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. So I was like, selfishly, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave California because like I'm surfing every single morning. You're enjoying living there. Yeah. I can't do this. So I was like, but how about this? How about you trust Iceman and I? We'll self-produce the record. We'll make it ourselves. Just give us some money and let us move to a house in Malibu. So they're like, what can you find? So I found this house for $7,500 for 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Which, in comparison to making an album is very cheap. And it was up in the canyons, maybe 10 minutes from PCH, this beautiful 4-bedroom house with a vineyard in the back, mountain cliff. And they were like, okay, cool. So the only thing we rented, Isom thankfully had all his gear, but the only thing we rented was an upright piano and a microphone, like a better microphone for vocals. And we just moved to Malibu for 4 weeks, and it was just him and I in this big house, man. That was one of the greatest times of my entire life. It was amazing. Being 26 years old and just having these things happen was super cool. But we took it very seriously, and we had this very strong vision as to, I think, what we wanted that album to be. And, to this day, that record is pretty important. I'm not a big band by any means. I'm not a popular band by any means, but I think the fans I have, I'm really grateful because they're pretty diehard, and they got really big hearts. So that record to them is still pretty important and pretty big, and it's still my favorite Chain Gang record I've ever done.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to ask you what your favorite one was.
Yeah, I think it's that one. There's no real way of explaining what it is. It's like a electronic punk album. I don't know what that record was, but I was very much in the mindset of not wanting, unlike I was in Wayward Fire, this time I was like, I don't really want to be anything. I just want to like make music, and I have all this anger in me. It's coming out, but I'm like, I've also like, I stopped smoking, so mentally I'm getting healthier, physically I'm getting healthier, all this stuff, and then it just kind of came out. But then in that process, when we finished the record, Rockstar Games reached out, and they're like, "Hey, we're in LA. We're at the Roosevelt. If you want to come by." And I, at the time, I was living in a place called Beechwood Canyon, and was right by the Roosevelt. So I went down there, and they were like, "This is what we're doing. We can finally tell you. we're gearing up to announce and release Grand Theft Auto 5.
Holy
and we
crap.
would really love for one of your songs to be in the game. I was like, dude, okay. So we sat at the hotel and he's like, do you have anything you can play us? I said, well, I can only play you this. I may actually be getting my memory off slightly. This may have been before we even went to Malibu to make the record. I can't remember because I only ended up playing them Lola Suzanne and Sleepwalking. But for whatever reason, they originally were like, we want to use Lola Suzanne. I was like, cool. Like, they're like, we just want to be on the radio station in the game and stuff. I was like, awesome, sounds good. Like, this is amazing. So it was funny. It was like a week before they announced the game, like put all the commercials out. But my manager at the time called and was like, yo, like I just got the phone with Rockstar and they want to use Sleepwalking now. And there's a chance that they actually want it to be like the theme song for the game, meaning it'll be in the end credits and in all the commercials. So I was like, what are the chances of this happening? He's like, don't get excited. We don't know. Just stand by. And I think it was like 2 days before the commercial was coming out, which is crazy how these people work. But yeah, I got the call and they're like, Sleepwalking's it. Get ready. Like it's about to happen. So
it's nuts.
It was nuts. It was, to this day, it's still the biggest thing that's ever happened to me. You know, it's like, it was crazy. It was just like, the song just took off and did its thing. And to this day, it's still, you know, people still dig that tune. It's still an important song to those people. And yeah, it was fun, man. So that essentially set up for, not with Warner Brothers, the relationship with Warner was fucking terrible. And this had nothing to do with Kevin, you know, he was out of the picture by then.
Sure.
But there's just, you know, working with that label and being with that label, they were a bunch of bozos and it just didn't, they dropped the ball a lot on that album.
Yeah.
But even with that aside, like the whole trajectory with Sleepwalking and everything happening, it was a fun cycle. It wasn't as fun as the Wayward Fire one because I think I wasn't as green to everything and I was now kind of had more expectations. I think that's when the darkness of touring really kind of started to creep in. And like the mental instability for me started to kind of creep in where like I would get a bit more angry than usual. I would get a bit more anxious than usual. And I was just like, what's happening here? I've never really been like this. So that's when my mindset started to shift a little bit. It's like how I want to like operate. And it took a few years for me to finally set in the stone, but that's when the thought process started.
I got you. With the success of Sleepwalking on the video game, when you're playing shows, did you see crowds get a little bigger, maybe sing the song, obviously? Was it just kind of one of those things that just it kind of happened overnight type thing?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, it was a kind of an overnight thing. But it, I mean, it was great. We got to like headline shows and like, you know, played almost sold out shows and stuff. I think we kept touring. Shows probably would have started selling out, but after essentially like one full touring cycle, I was kind of like, I'm done. Like I don't want to do this right now. So no,
that makes sense. I mean,
it was cool. It was awesome. It was rad to see like things kind of start to change.
Sure. I got you. And so let's talk about the next record, Felt. And you mentioned obviously maybe changing the label. Did you go with like Caroline? Is that correct? Or
yeah, that was, you know, I was talking to my brother about this, and I think Felt. Not even think I know. I don't like that album. You know, it was I think I was maybe I don't know, maybe consciously or subconsciously, I'm not too sure, but I was in a weird place because it was coming out of this, what should have been far more successful album cycle. And then, you know, getting out of the Warner deal and basically just like that kind of went up in flames. What we, fortunately got out, and then finding a new label like Caroline. But I think I went into it thinking like, okay, well, I gotta like deliver, you know, I gotta like, let me explore my real pop side here. Let me see what I can do. And I just don't know if that was the best idea. I think it maybe led and resulted in a record that was a little subpar. Like I can go back and listen to all the Chain Gang albums, like feel pretty good about it. Felt is still one that put it on, I'm like,
Yeah.
There was no, I think the best way for me to explain it, there was no heart and soul in that album.
I gotcha. Do you think it was because you were jaded, maybe, or maybe from, maybe were you just in a bad spot in your mind at the time, or
probably a bit of everything, yeah. And I think too, like really, this was the first time I wasn't working with Awesome. I worked with Tom Powers of the band The Naked and Famous. He produced the record and co-wrote the record with me, and he's phenomenal musician, producer, dude. Like, it was great. This really has nothing to do with him. I think it was maybe for me, I probably just didn't write the best of songs.
I got you.
And like, I'm able to kind of realize that now. And like, I think there were maybe a couple tracks in the record that still hold up, and I can basically kind of tell off the Spotify numbers and stuff like that. But like,
yeah,
I don't know, man. It just, I think most musicians probably can look back over the years and be like, well, I may have thought that record was a good idea, but it's not. I mean, look at Noel Gallagher, the way he talks about Be Here Now. It's like, all he does is just trash that record now. But back then, they thought they were making the greatest thing that ever existed.
Oh, I know.
But now he's just like, that record's fucking awful. So I'm not saying that about Felt, but it's just, it's a hard. It just, I think that's the best way. Yeah, there's just no heart and soul. It just feels very empty to me.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, since that's your least favorite, I'll ask you the least amount of questions. Let's talk about Honeymoon Drips. Kind of, where did you go record label wise with that? Would you self-release it as well? Or like kind of what Caroline, did it fizzle? How kind of go?
No, so I got out of the Caroline deal. Caroline was shitty as well. They just didn't do anything for Felt. So it was, at this point of our Teenage Wrist has already started. So Teenage Wrist started, I got done with the Dating Forever album cycle and basically was like, I need a break from anything Chain Gang related. I just don't want to really focus on that right now. So I went to high school with Marshall. We went to high school together in Colorado. He was like a grade or two younger than me. And we would play in local bands together as we got older. And then, he ended up moving to LA, and he was newer to LA than I was. But we'd see each other out a lot and start to see each other more often. So I think one day I just kind of hit him up. I'm like, dude, we should just jam. Like, it'd be fun. Just kind of, we'd never jam together. Like, you want to come over? So, he came over and we just kind of started messing around for a few weeks. And I don't think we really had anything in mind per se, but we kind of knew what we didn't want. And I think for me, it was like, I didn't want anything serious in the terms of like, or in the sense that I just wanted to have fun with music again. Because I felt like everything was becoming so business oriented with Chain Gang, where I just didn't really enjoy it as much as I wanted to. And next thing we knew, we got an EP done. We wrote 6 songs and we were having so much fun making it. And, we ended up like bringing Anthony on board. So like, we were just like, hey, why don't we record this EP and just like be a band? Like, just be a band in the sense where like, if somebody calls and is like, wants to, they need a band to play a fucking basement show, like we can do it. It was really just for that at first. And so we did the EP and played some shows and did our thing. And it kind of just like gradually moved
bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it kind of gradually moved forward. So, so you then go to Felt ended, and then Teenage Wrist basically gets signed. And we get signed to Epitaph. And then that's when kind of like the whirlwind of that happened. And it was like, none of us really expected for what happened to happen. Basically, we weren't, I don't know if we were prepared for it. It was just it all happened really fast. I think I was doing Dewey at the Pure Pleasure podcast, and I was talking about this. It all happened like pretty fast. And I don't know if we were
prepared for it.
And not fast in the sense of like where we became like a stadium rock band, but just, like having to be a band. We had to learn how to become a band. And I don't know if we had enough time and or patience for that moment to have done that or achieved that. But we can go back to all that Teenage Wrist stuff. But we after so Teenagers was doing a thing, we'd been touring, and then I kind of was just like, well, I think I kind of just want to make a Chain Gang record. You know, it's time to kind of make one again. But so yeah, I obviously knew like I got really lucky. So I worked in it with a bunch of different people. Like my good buddy Nat from 303, he was so gracious, and like, you know, he's got a studio at his house, and I would just go over there and we would just hang out for 7-8 hours and just make music and just write together. He'd produce, and it was great. And then my buddy Jason Sowito was a great producer. He was in that band Sir Sly. Who else did I work with? John Kunkel from the New Division. So it was kind of just me being able to get with a bunch of friends and it's like, hey, I kind of got this vision. I think I know what I want this record to be. Like, do you want to work on it with me? And prior to that, like Chain Gang started coming back with new music. I did an EP, and so I was kind of like in this mindset of wanting to move forward with it. But I ended up putting together this album that was pretty strong, and I knew kind of like going back to like what it is that I want and what it is that I don't want. So basically fired management, decided not to re-sign to a label, and just did it all myself. I started my own little label and put out everything. And now here we are 3 years later since that album's come out, and it's like the second most popular Chain Gang record. You know, it has more streams than Wayward Fire. It's
wow.
Yeah, it's super cool. So that's like, that record ended up being something pretty cool for, I think like what like the history of Chain Gang is. And it was a good place to kind of leave it, basically. Yeah. Like I put out some singles here and there since then. Yeah. But as far as like a full-length album goes, like I don't know where I want to go next with this project. Sure. And, you know, it's been a project since 2006. It's a long time.
No, it really is. That's cool though. I mean, at least you have, you know, grown over the years, and you've some hits, some misses, but looking back on it, you have, you know, 5 great records, including this, you know, and singles as well, that you can look back on as a piece of your history and who you are, and people get to relate to it. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, I hope so. You know, it's like that's the fun thing about music. It's just kind of always there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, unless something really weird and odd happens, but like, yeah, it's there forever, and it's there for people to just, you know, enjoy and discover, and it's there. And you know, it's funny too, because like starting Heavenward, I've had like Chain Gang fans, because obviously Heavenward and Chain Gang are two very different projects.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, like aesthetically, sonically, everything. They're two very different projects. So I've had a lot of Chain Gang fans kind of get a little nervous. So like, are you ever going to do it again? I'm like, yes, like pump the brakes here, guys. Just like, don't worry. Like Chain Gang can't really break up because it's just me.
It's just you
know. So it's like it really does just come down to me like not ever wanting to make another Chain Gang song again.
Sure.
I don't think I'm at that point.
Well, I love the new single, the High Wire Days song. I think that's fantastic.
Thanks,
I absolutely love that song.
I do too. I think it's a great song, and you know, I'm excited and happy that I'm able to like still be able to like make songs like that I'm stoked about. But I don't think I've been able to really write a song that I think is great since then. So I've kind of just been like, yeah, let's just let this chill. And then, you know, then comes Heavenward. Like my everything in me was kind of starting to push towards that. And I was just like, I think I want to make a record like this. So,
yeah. No, that makes sense.
Here we are.
Well, let's step back a little and let's talk about Teenage Risk. You kind of mentioned it kind of organically came together, which is cool. It's awesome that you guys were playing around and things started happening, and you put the EP out and you got a little buzz. And I want to talk about Chrome Neon Jesus. I discovered that record. I don't even know how, to be honest with you. I think I heard it on a Spotify playlist or one of the songs, and I was floored. I really was. I just was like, whoa, this is like, I don't know, the production was incredible. Loved the artwork. I loved everything about it. And I gravitated to that record so much. And it was one of my favorite records of that year, for sure, by far. Let's talk about that record, kind of your thoughts on the recording and maybe memories from that time and just writing that record, just kind of what it was like for you.
I mean, it was a good time. It was a good time and it was a bad time. You know, like I feel pretty good talking about this kind of stuff now, only because, you know, me, Marshall, and Anthony have just become much better friends ever since I left the band.
Sure.
I think at the time, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. We kind of had to become a band, basically.
Yeah.
We didn't come from a history of hanging out with each other every single day, doing that kind of stuff. So then you now are in a relationship with these people. You're on the road with them. You're everything you do is involving these people. So it's like you see the ins and outs. And I think we look. I don't ever want to make it, and I don't ever want to make it out to be like it was just absolutely miserable time, because it wasn't. We for sure had some fucking bad times.
Sure.
Probably every band does, but a lot of it was me. A lot of it was like, I think what I was just maybe going through personally, and having a lot of like battles, I think, with my identity is like, do I want this? I think when I was younger, I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be recognized. I wanted that, especially when Chain Gang first started. And then the older I got, when I started getting that kind of recognition, and even from a smaller level, I started to realize, I'm like, this makes me uncomfortable. Like, it's a battle that I still have to this day.
Sure.
Because I want attention. I want what I'm creating to get attention. And I get bummed out if it doesn't. I pay a lot of attention to numbers and the data of it all. And every single day, it's a curse of mine, but I check to see how things are performing and this and that. And yeah, it's a curse, because it can destroy me sometimes,
Sure.
because I compare myself too much. But a lot of that stuff was like my battles with, I think, like how I wanted to be perceived. And I think it all kind of like, it was funny because like Chain Gang didn't tour off of Felt. I made the decision. We did 2 tours leading up to the album release. We toured with AFI for a couple of weeks, and then we toured with Naked and Famous again for like 5 weeks. And then we played 1 show on the release day in 2017 for that record. And then I was just like, fuck this. Like, I'm done doing this. I don't want to tour anymore. I don't want to tour like that, where it's like you're in the van, you've got no team. It's just like you're doing all the driving. I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It's really killing me. So I made the decision to stop, and then everything happened with Teenage Risk. So I was like thrown right back in, and like,
Totally.
Of course, I'm an adult. It was my decision to like, I wrote my name on that contract. You know what I mean? It was like, but I had to look at it like you have to look at it this way. Most people don't get the one chance to get a record deal. This is my 3rd record deal. So I was like,
yeah, no, I don't blame you.
I got to do it. You know what I mean?
You.
And of course I was passionate about the band. I love the band. I love the music. I thought we wrote some really great music. And yeah, I mean, it was just so funny, because it was like, we didn't really expect that to happen. Like the whole Epitaph thing was just one. I remember I went to this, there's this really rad Korean spa in K-Town called We Spa. And it's like, 2 separate spas, like men's spa and then the women's spa. And then you go upstairs, and then there's like all the saunas, and that's all unisex. But it's like, you're in these, like, they give you these matching outfits, like a shirt and shorts. It's awesome. It's super great. But there's like a cold sauna, and there's a sauna with like all these like clay balls on the ground, just laying them. And like, I would go there, and there's a Korean restaurant inside too. So when you're done doing all your stuff, you just go there, eat a bunch of amazing Korean food. It kicks ass. So I was there. I was just like, I think I got done with some Chain Gang stuff. I was like, I just want to go relax and I'm going to We Spa. And I got my phone out of the locker, and there's a text from no longer my management, but I believe it's still Teenagers' management. And yeah, they were just like, hey, Epitaph want to meet. Like, they're really, really interested in, like, pretty serious about this. So like, let's get everyone together and go to the office. I was like, holy shit. And of course, with my background, being, a punk emo kid growing up, like, Epitaph is the dream. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was no way of saying no to this in a way, even though there was like, I remember having thoughts like, fuck, am I about to do this again?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in my 20s anymore. You know what I mean? I was in my early 30s when we signed that record deal. So it's like,
no, I get it.
If I were 21, I probably would have still been in the band to this day.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I've already had like one lifetime of a signed musician, and now I'm about to go back and do it again. So
not alone. You know, you're doing it with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like maybe I wasn't fully capable of like knowing how to operate that way, but yeah, I had my doubts, I had my fears, but we did it, and I'm so grateful that we did. And yeah, we ended up just after all that, I think. So we had 2 songs that ended up getting us. So we had the EP that came out.
Yeah.
And then we had released Stoned Alone as a one-off single prior to being signed or even having interest from Epitaph. But Marshall and I wrote that song, you know, we put it out, we did it ourselves. So there are technically 2 versions of that song.
Okay.
And we put it out. The song did pretty well. It was like getting on Spotify playlists, and like people were digging it. Our small fan base were digging it. So we had that song. And then we had, I think, Dweeb, that song.
Yeah.
So when Epitaph was interested and started showing interest, when we met with them, we showed them those 2 songs. And then Swallow may have been in there too. I can't remember. But yeah, basically those songs like got us the record deal. They were like, here you go. We're drafting up a deal now. So we had to go in and write the rest of the record. Excuse me. And yeah, it was actually a pretty easy process, man. It came out. It was very natural how we did it. It was fun.
That's awesome. What are some of your favorite songs from that record? Thinking back on it.
I think Super Machine is my favorite song. I remember Marshall showing me that. He's like, you know, because we basically, like, how it worked was like we would either all be in a room together and like kind of figure stuff out, or like someone would come with an idea and then we would work on that one together. So a lot of times it was me going to Marshall like, hey, I came up with this bass line and this verse melody. What do you think about this? And then we would bounce, and then vice versa. So I was at his house and he started playing he had demoed out Super Machine. And I think if I can remember correctly, in his eyes, he wanted it to just kind of be like an acoustic song.
Wow.
Like I immediately heard where it was going to go. I was like, dude, it's got to do this. This is the chorus. Like, let's do this and this. And it was such a fun moment, I remember. And like, really, we just kind of like really knew like, oh, we got something pretty cool here. But,
yeah.
Yeah. He crushed it on that, you know, like he came with so many incredible ideas, but, yeah, that song I really love. I love Chrome Neon Jesus. Yeah, I don't think there's one song on that record I think
it's fantastic.
Rad songs.
Through and through, absolutely. I was gonna say, ask you when you finally heard the record at the end of it, when it's mastered and mixed, what were your thoughts? And I guess collectively, I know you can't speak for the other guys in the band, but I just want to know your personal thoughts, and then I want to know kind of what you guys as a whole thought.
I mean, we were thrilled. You know, we worked with Carlos de la Garza on the album, who phenomenal dude. He just produced like the latest Paramore record that came out, and super great guy. He has a studio at his house in Eagle Rock, so it was like a really short drive for us. We didn't have to leave town, which was pretty convenient and awesome. And yeah, we just enjoyed the process. It was a fun process. It was an easy process, and like we were just fairly confident in ourselves and I think in the music and like what we wanted to kind of like present. And at this point, like I wasn't checked out. I was very, very involved, like maybe too involved. And I think that maybe led to my kind of downfall. Just, I took it all pretty seriously, and not to say the other guys didn't. Of course they did. They were so passionate about every detail. But I think the way we maybe viewed certain aspects that I thought were really important, maybe they thought were important, but didn't see it the way I saw it, that led to clashing. And then when, just like any relationship, if you don't talk about things and just build, and I'm bad with that. I sometimes will hold things in because I don't want to maybe approach the situation or deal with what can come by saying, 3 words. But what I was saying is like, I wasn't checked out. I was so pretty involved. So, I mean, we toured pretty good on that record. You know, we did some pretty solid runs. We toured with, I think our first long tour was us, Pianos Become the Teeth, and The World is a Beautiful Place.
Oh, nice.
So that was really fun. That was a pretty brutal tour because we started the tour in London, Ontario, but for some reason, no one heard us. We sent a few emails to our team. We're like, let's book some shows out to Toronto. And no one did. So we drove for 4 days straight just to Ontario. And like right before we crossed the border, we had to fill up the van with gas and the card got declined because we had spent all our money getting out to the start of tour. And I was just like, why does this shit keep happening? I was just like, so crazy. But those are all, you know, I guess growing pains. But
sure.
Yeah, we toured with them. We toured with Citizen, which was great. We did, who else? We did Reading and Leeds in the UK and did a short UK run, which was amazing. What other tours did we do? What other full US tours? But I can't remember. Oh, Thrice in the Bronx. How am I forgetting that one?
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, that one was awesome. We got to share a tour bus with the Bronx, so that was really nice. So we were out of the van for that tour, which was great.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure.
And it was fun to share a bus with the Bronx. That was just awesome. I love those guys. Really great dudes. So man, I mean, it was fun, and I felt like we were very strong, and we were really in our fucking game, man. Like,
oh, absolutely,
we were doing it. But you know, it's also one of those things too. It's like I had a lot of expectations. I was like, man, people are pumped on this record. You know, I'm watching Citizen play, and like they're playing a slow song, and people are fucking losing their minds and stage diving. So like, oh yeah, we're gonna be that band. We're gonna get that. And dude, there were maybe a handful of shows where people actually like moshed and went crazy. So most times people would just sit there and stare at us, and I'm like, what's happening? Like, what are we doing something wrong? So that starts the motors in my head again, and I'm just like, so all this stuff kind of started building up, and like, even though I was in my early 30s, I was younger. I'm 37 now. I know how to deal with a lot of that kind of stuff. But I think like, you know, they don't teach you this kind of shit in school, you know?
No,
like,
they don't.
When you sign a record deal, and like when you start a band, they don't teach you this stuff either. Like they don't prepare you for a lot of the struggles you might kind of face.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, dude, it was so awesome. I'm still so proud of it. And, you know, I think by the time we were doing the Counting Flies EP, like by the time we were recording that, I actually talked to Marshall about this. Like I was pretty checked out. I was like, because usually I remember Chrome Down Jesus when we were in the studio, even like writing the drum, like, you know, when Anthony was writing the drum parts and we were like doing stuff, I was just like, you know, staring at the kit being like, let's try this. So I was like meticulously trying to like see everything happen. With the Counting Flies EP, like I was involved in the writing and everything, of course, but then like when we were recording it, I kind of just recorded my parts. I was like, I'm out. So I just like would leave, and then like, you know, it was super weird. So then we did like some shows, and we did like a 2-week run with Basement and Nothing. And like, I think I secretly knew that was it. So I really enjoyed that tour. I had a really great time. And then, after that tour, I just decided to leave. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So they were understanding. They were really understanding. I think there was a lot of shit we never talked about.
Sure.
Prior to me telling them I want to leave. But yeah, it happened. And then I think we were chill. And then it was we laugh about this now. I don't know what happened with like with the announcement. They were like planning the announcement. So basically I told them I'm done with the band. So months go by, and then everyone hits me up and they're like, hey, we have to like make an announcement. Like we wrote this on your behalf. And I was just like, hey, like, I think I said something. I was just like, look, can I write it? Like, I'm leaving the band. Can I write it? And then that caused something to happen, and we got in this huge fight. And I basically was just like, fuck it. I don't give a shit what you say. I'm done. Like, just post whatever the fuck you want. I'm out. Peace. So that was when we kind of didn't speak for a year plus.
Sure.
I wasn't fond of them. They probably weren't fond of me. But at the end of the day, there were no real reasons why. I think we we were all just confused. Yeah. If that makes sense, you know, but I sound like a broken record now, but like, I'm so grateful that all that happened, because like, we've become such better friends since, and like actually become buddies. Like like, I love those dudes so much. Like, you know, Marshall had such a big part of this Heavenward album. Anthony and I talk all the time. Like, I'm so proud and happy of like what they did with that band too. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because at the end of the day, it's my baby, but that baby grew up and I had to let it go.
Yeah.
So I'll always feel passionate about that band, that name, what it was, what the past was. I'll always be passionate and not possessive at all. Like, not in that sense. Because I really, that took a while. I had to learn to let go. You know, I remember when I left, I blocked them on Instagram and stuff because I didn't want to see anything. I don't want to, like, you know, it was like a breakup. Like, I just didn't want to. I don't want to be notified about anything. Like, I don't want to hear the new music. It was super weird, and it took work for me to kind of get to that point. And I remember finally seeing them live with Movements at the House of Blues Anaheim. Like, this was maybe a few years ago. I was so nervous, man. I was just like so nervous. Like, what am I gonna do here? Like, this is so weird. Like, I'm gonna watch Marshall sing the songs that what's happening? Yeah. And then like, I was watching it, I just got so emotional in like the best way possible. I was just like, fuck yes. Like, I love these dudes. This sounds incredible, looks incredible. Like, and then all that anxiety was just gone because I had to like face my problem. I had to face my fear basically. So yeah, dude, look, at the end of the day, I'm stoked on what we did. I think we made a pretty rad record. I love that people still talk about it. I love that 5 years later, I'm still getting questioned about it. I don't live in the past. I definitely learned to not do that in my life, even though I'd like to reminisce, but it's like, you move forward, you grow, you got to progress. That's that. Yeah. But the fact that like people still talk about this record and is super cool, super flattering. And hey, maybe one day we'll all play a show together, you know? Well, maybe cool. One day we'll do a 10-year show. Who knows?
That's awesome, man. Like I said, I just think it's a fantastic record, and I'm stoked that you got to be a part of that. And it's something that, again, it influenced people's lives, and it's cool that you're on the trajectory, still making great music. So that's really awesome.
Awesome, man. That's kind of you.
Yeah, man. I really mean that. Let's talk about Heavenward, man. I think this is a progression of Teenage Wrist in a weird way, and I mean that in a respectful way. Like, I just think you are going a different route, but it's very similar to Teenage Wrist, but it's also completely different from Teenage Wrist, which I love. Let's talk about Heavenward, and let's talk about the Pryophonics record that comes out tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it comes out in a few hours. I got some shit to do still. I'm like, I woke up this morning, I was like, oh no, I didn't make any of the visualizers for YouTube. Fuck. So like, I gotta
I'm sorry, I'm
No, I didn't mean it like that. No. I'm like, I've got 3 more to do. It's gonna take me 30 minutes. We're good. But yeah, dude, the Heavenward record comes out in a few hours, and I'm really excited about it. And it's fun because like, obviously there's still, I was telling you this, I still care about how everything's presented. I still take this seriously, but this isn't my everything anymore. Like, music isn't my everything. It's like, I don't do it to survive. I don't do it for these things anymore, even though there are still business aspects to it all. Sure. And like, I'm still strategic about everything. And
sure.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying with that, but like, this project was really just for fun. It started after, started in the pandemic, but like basically kind of finally come to terms with being like, damn, I miss making rock music. Like, I listen to rock music. It's my favorite genre. It's all everything rock focused. So I'm like, I miss it. Like, I'm just going to start writing some songs. So, I wrote the song Whole in 2020, did it with my buddy Chris Lorenz, who's an awesome producer and writer. But then right before then, Marshall and I patched everything up. And then when that happened, I reached out to Anthony, just like, I apologized for a lot, and we patched things up, and it was just awesome. So I'm not, you fast forward a few months later, I'm not doing this thing. And I hit up Marshall. It's just like, you want to throw a guitar solo on here, man? Like, it needs something in the bridge. He's like, fuck yeah, I'm down. So did it. That kind of opened up our working relationship again. And, it was cool because we had like this talk, and I really had this too for the Pryophonics album, but I kind of established it well before, because I was like, listen, like, we obviously write similar sounding music because we were in a band together. Like, if you left now and started another band, like, people are going to say it sounds like Teenage Risk. And if I'm leaving Teenage Risk and decided to write more rock music, kind of sound like Teenage Risk because I was the singer. I equally wrote the songs. Like, it's going to sound like it. It's, there's no arguing that. But I remember going to Marshall and being like, look, I want to wholeheartedly respect your creative process, because like, my biggest fear is me coming to you with a Heavenward song and being like, what would you think about guitar? And then you giving me a riff that could be potentially the most iconic Teenage Risk riff. Like, I don't want to take that away from you. I don't want to, carry that weight and have it burden me. So like, it was this space that I really wanted to respect, mainly because I felt like I had grown so much, and him and I had grown so much. And so, we've grown separately, we've grown together. And I wanted to really, because I cherish his friendship. I cherish him as a human being. I cherish Anthony. I want to make sure, like, if we are going to work together on a separate level, but together, like, are we good? Because I don't want to jeopardize that,
No, that makes sense.
And it was great. Everyone was on the same page. It was amazing. So yeah, the first few Heavenward songs, like, Anthony played drums on them, and then like I played drums on them, so he helped like engineer the drums and record it. It was just really fun. And then yeah, you kind of move forward a few years later, and here I am now made an album. So yeah, it comes out tonight, and I'm very stoked about it. I'm very proud of it. It was cool because, I've talked about this before, but like, since it is a solo project, I feel like I need to not be in control, but like, I got to steer the ship. So
sure,
it was my goal to essentially, when I'm working with these outside writers, whether it's Marshall, whether it was my good friend Austin from the band Dear Boy, I want to present them with essentially a finished song. Like, This is everything. Here are the melodies, here are the lyrics, here are the structures. It's written on the bass, or it's written on the guitar, but it's just the rhythm guitars only. Like, what would you put down guitar-wise? So it was like this really cool, fun process that, though, like, I had to, really be responsible for doing that. And I put that pressure on myself, because I'm like, if this is my project, I want to do that. I was totally open to like them just doing what it is that they want to do, and like really respect that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I was so lucky too that they wanted to do that. Like, absolutely. The fact that they wanted to lend me their talents and like work together, and like, I'm so grateful that can happen. Like, I'm still so grateful for them. So like, this is, they should be in the room talking with me about this record too. It's like, I feel like it's our record in a way. It's like, yeah. I made an Instagram post a few weeks ago. I was just basically saying like, this project is just like a collaboration between friends. That's all it really is. You know what I mean? But I'm really proud of it. I think it's just it's a super cool record. And going back, I did have like necessity, just because I just wanted to do it. But I feel really grateful that I'm able to do that and like carve out time in my life and like, it's great. Make an album and put it out and have people even give a shit. That's the crazy part too. Like, after all this time, people still care about what I do. And I think that goes back to the whole like not wanting to be a rock star thing, because like, even though it's so amazing to see people care and I want people to care, like I just always like want to be viewed as like just a normal dude who happens to make music. I don't want my music to be my identity anymore.
Sure.
So like, there's even still like a battle with this record release, because like, I want to care, and by caring, I need to present it a certain way and promote it a certain way and do all that. But then does that now lead me down the road where this, identifies me? And like, that's what I'm afraid of. So it's this constant balance.
It's a double-edged sword. Like, it is. Yeah.
I've got to constantly remind myself, but I'm stoked on the record and stoked for people to hear it tonight. It's like, I think it's, I don't know. I didn't send it to you, did I?
No, but I would love for you.
Fuck. Should have. Well, at this point.
No, I'll just wait till midnight.
You're going to wait. No, I'll send it to you. I don't care. I should have sent it to you.
No worries.
But yeah, dude, I think it's definitely, the people who have heard it have said it's like the most like Cam record they've ever heard.
That's great. What a compliment.
Pretty cool to me. Yeah. And I think they're right. I think it's kind of me in a nutshell. And I think I maybe just looked at like, what if I never left Teenage Wrist? Like, what would I write? And I didn't have that in mind. Like, I need this to sound like Teenage Wrist. That wasn't it. It again goes back to what I was talking about. Just like, that's how I wrote these rock focused songs. This is how I write the songs. So like, it's going to sound like that.
Sure.
But I definitely want to we took some different approaches to like the structures. Zach Tush produced the record. He, the last couple of years, he just did the Zulu record that came out this year.
Oh, nice.
The Initiate record that just came out. So all really great albums. And he kind of really pushed me into like a different direction and kind of was like, let's try this instead of this. And it took me getting used to a little bit, but at the end of the day, like, we've worked together in the past, so I have this trust to work with them. But yeah, so we'll see if the world digs it, man.
I bet they do. What's your favorite song on the new record?
There's a song called Tangerine, which I really love. And there's also a song called Pneumatic Fly, which I really love. But I dig them all. I'm just kind of stoked.
It's your new baby. I know.
Yeah, it's my new baby. But it's like, dude, in a few hours, it's everyone. It's no longer mine. It's just like, all right, that's it. People are going to talk about it for a day, and then it just it floats away. That's it.
Are you planning on doing any touring with this, or any shows or anything like that?
I don't think I'll tour. I'll definitely do some shows. Like we're playing June 20th, so next Thursday. So a week from today is our very first show.
Cool.
And that was a anxiety-fueled nightmare for me. Because I haven't played a live show with my own project since 2019. Like I've played shows with 303 as their bass player, but not like Chain Gang hasn't played since 2017. I stopped touring in Teenage Wrist in 2019. So
yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. So like, got offered the show. I said, fuck it, let's do it. And then I had to put the band together, break the songs down, get them stems. And fortunately they're all friends and everyone's down to just have a good time and play. But going into the rehearsal, I was just, oh my God, I was so anxious and so nervous. Just what am I doing? Why am I putting myself back in this situation again? But once we really started to kind of jam, and by the second rehearsal, it was fuck yes, this is awesome. This feels great. If we were on tour for a month, we would sound fantastic. So I think we're pretty good here. So yeah, I'm stoked. It's the goal is to essentially just kind of have these group of friends who I think are kind of all in the same position as me. We're all a little older and kind of got our lives, but we like playing and we like being involved.
Totally.
And if a really cool opportunity or fun opportunity presents itself, it's amazing to know that they're there. I can call them hey, you guys want to play a show in 2 weeks? Sure, let's do it. Get a rehearsal in, go play the show. So, and in the time since Heavenward started, I've had a lot of really cool bands that I love hit me up, be yo, we're doing LA, San Diego, Orange County. You want to come open? And I'm fuck, I'm not there yet. I'm not at that point, but now we are. So to me, it'd be great just do a weekend of shows, just Southern California. But once people start being here is, 4 weeks, you're going through this random spot in Illinois and this random spot in Kansas, I'm just I'm good.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, it makes a lot. It makes complete sense. I think the older you get, you know, you want stability and being at home and being comfortable and not being in a van, slugging it, you know.
Yeah. If there were a bus,
that'd be a different story.
If there's a bus and there's money, which there isn't. Yeah, why not?
Totally.
Why not?
So I know you cannot tell the future, and I know you kind of just mentioned maybe some things, but tell me what you've got in the future. Like what does your life look like coming up, other than the release of this record, and kind of what are you going to continue? Obviously, doing the artwork and playing on any of the records, or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, like you said, you can't really tell the future, but yeah, I mean, I'll be 38 next month, which is kind of a hard pill to swallow, and I think I'm like realizing that. And I've never really been afraid of getting older. I've always felt like I'm
sure,
you know, but I'm 18. I still feel that way. And my wife is very encouraging too. She's like, I'm like, look, I got these gray hairs coming in. She's like, fucking embrace it. Like, it's great. I'm like, okay. So I don't know, man. I think it's just continuing to just try and be as happy as possible and keep just doing shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's all in time. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And
yeah, I get it, bro.
What about you? I mean, that's kind of a loaded question.
Well,
what are you doing next? You know?
I have a good.
You got an answer for that?
Yeah, I actually do. I have a great gig. I have an amazing wife. I have a newer home. I can't complain. I have a great job. Man, my kids are adults now, so literally, you know, I mean, life's not perfect, but I definitely am blessed, and I can't complain. So,
yeah.
You know, I'm just gonna keep working and keep doing this podcast and talking to awesome people like you, and I don't know, just see where it goes, and just enjoying the blessings that I do have. So.
Oh, I love that, man.
Yeah, man, dude, this has been so cool, man. It's been so awesome to catch up. It's been so long, but I'm super stoked for you. I truly mean what I said. I love everything you've done. I think it's fantastic, and I wish you well, and I hope it continues for, and I can't wait to see the reception for Heavenward. So,
dude, thank you, man. Thanks so much for wanting to talk to me. You know,
yeah, man.
I think it's rad we got to chat and like kind of catch up this way, even though we've been talking on Instagram for a little while now too.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that like we can just kind of see each other face to face, and you know, if you're ever in California, man, you hit me up.
Absolutely. Actually, my kids live out there. They were living in Glendale for a little bit. So,
shit.
Yeah, I definitely will. I go up there every once in a while, but I'll hit you up for sure.
Yeah, hit me up next time you're in Glendale, dude. I mean, I like driving. I'm like weird. I mean, I think you have to kind of like driving if you live in LA.
Yeah.
But I like it, dude. So if you're in Glendale, hit me up.
I will.
Yeah, it's
I would love
45 minutes with no traffic. Easy.
Dude, what an awesome conversation. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it, and I'll let you know when I post this, but it was cool
awesome.
hang, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you in a second. All right.
Okay, see you, man.
Hey, thank you to the listener for tuning in to this latest episode. I really appreciate your support. Add me on Instagram and Facebook if you'd like, at the Rumors Are True Cast. Like and subscribe if you'd like as well. You know the drill. Thank you, Kamtin Mohager, for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate your time. It was cool to hear those stories and catch up. We hadn't talked to each other for quite a while, and just awesome to reconnect. So check out the new Heavenward record, Pryophonics. It's incredible. Man, he did a fantastic job on this record. Thank you again, and I've got some amazing artists on the horizon. Man, nostalgia, guys, is a heck of a drug.